from them. They took it and spent it. Spent women and drink. So am I going to go to Spain and say, I want my gold back?
No, I'm saying there's examples of people who served their country. Muhammad Ali loved this country, but he didn't want to go to war to kill people that didn't have any quarrels with him. So the question is, when you say you respect the individual soldiers,
I'm going to buy everything.
Still respecting the establishment that is going over there.
They're not making the decision to go to war.
They are making the decision.
No, they're just, they are soldiers obeying orders because that's what they've been trained to do.
When you sign up for a job, you forfeit consent, and that is your consent to join the job. What do you think you're doing when you join the army?
So let me understand. So are you saying God is not allowed to use his judgment by sword or by flood? No, are you saying that? Are you limiting God? Because God can bring down judgment on a nation.
You can join a book.
God can bring judgment down in England now and have thousands of people butchered.
Testosterone has nothing to do with
you're
guns
limiting
and
God, Captain.
You don't think that is the reason why a lot of them join?
No, not at all.
What do you think?
A lack of intelligence.
Lack of intelligence.
Yes.
So killing babies and children is no longer.
It's significant lack of intelligence.
It's a mix of duties to one's country. It's a mix of duties to one's country.
That ends up in PTSD and
It should be, they get the idea that they're defending the country, but they don't realise they're being sent to this war.
soldiers do you generally see after retired service that say that they were proud to serve their country in comparison to the amount of soldiers that you see saying that they didn't know what they were signing up for once they got in there?
Certain wars don't give the same outcome.
This is exactly what I said.
You think people serving World War II was pointless?
World War II was a necessity, meaning that it had to happen.
Exactly, and that's why a lot of the troops joined the army because of those things. My ancestors gave my life for my country, therefore I like to follow in their
We're
footsteps.
talking on the retaliating side. I'm talking about the initiating side. The initiating side, did they have to go to war?
They didn't have to.
They didn't have to.
But when you join the army, you obey orders.
Heiko was saying the other week, right? A lot of people seem to.
So you obey orders blindly without questioning.
That's not even up for debate. Heiko was saying the other week, right? One of the distinct reasons the German army fell is because soldiers started, right, to disobey their upper leaders.
They started losing.
Say that again?
When they started losing.
I don't really.
It's the same in World War I, the same in World War II. No, if they were winning, there's no way they would disobey.
Say that again?
If they were winning, why would they disobey?
You'd have to tell me. You're making assumptions right now in comparison to Heiko, who's actually studying
it's just a basic of human nature. You don't want to continue something knowing that it's a lost battle.
Really?
Yeah.
So there's been no empires and no elites that have fought to the death.
There are exceptions.
Of course they have. So right now you're making assumptions based on what you would do. I'm giving you the information that Heiko gave us last week, and he's saying that one of the fundamental reasons the German army fell is because a lot of people started to fight back against their own elites and their own commanders.
Yeah, because the Allies were destroying their food supplies. You know, they couldn't eat.
But the thing is, I haven't even given you a timeline as to when this started happening.
The decisions by Hitler were absolutely terrible. You know.
Really?
Oh yes.
Really?
Yes.
Didn't he take a majority of Europe?
Because he let his generals do the job. As soon as he took control, he fucked everything up.
I don't really know what
you're saying. Hitler was a great military genius.
Say that again?
You're saying Hitler was a great military genius.
Is that what I said? Did that come out of my mouth?
No, you're saying, well, obviously,
did that come out of my mouth?
No, you're saying Germany did so well. You must include that.
So Germany is just Hitler as a sole entity. It's not made up of millions of soldiers.
Obviously, it's made up of millions of soldiers. I'm just saying,
the people paying the taxes, the people keeping up the economy.
The generals.
How did you equate the whole of the German army and the whole of the German nation to Hitler?
That was the big personality type of. Obviously.
No. But my question is, how did you take my statement and somehow come to the conclusion that I said everyone was personified by Hitler as a single individual? Where did you get that from?
Because the fact is that you're saying that when Germany took Poland, took Czechoslovakia, France, all those countries under Hitler's rule, you're pointing the credit of that to Hitler.
No. I asked you, right, if he was a terrible leader, how did Germany managed to take a decent portion
because
of
he let
Europe.
his generals do the work without him interfering.
And how is that not showing leadership? One of the main things of leadership is knowing when to relinquish your control.
Yes,
to other
and he
people who
didn't
are
do
better at
that.
the job.
And he didn't do that in the later stages of the war.
Say that again?
He didn't do that in the later stages of the war. He took full control.
Do you even know how, again, the German army came to pretty much a stall in the later stages of the war? Do you know?
Because they've been attacked by two sides. You
Yeah,
know?
one, they were being attacked by two sides, but two, they couldn't take Russia. Do you know why they couldn't take Russia?
Because the distance was too cold, and Stalin, he did the same mistake by trying to take full control of the Soviet army, and he did such a bad job that his generals say, you know, just focus on the factories and the productions, we'll take control, and then they started beating the Germans back because they let the generals do the job.
I'm going to have to call you out. You've got Make History Great on your high. You have, right?
And that is the history. That is the history.
I've heard that argument before about Stalin relinquishing control and the generals taking over.
Yes, and that's when they started beating the German army. No, the Germans lost because Hitler took too much control and made all these awful decisions like Stalingrad and all these other things.
No, the reason the German army lost in confrontation with the Russian army is because the Russian army had this tactic where they were willing to burn everything, and then retreat back into their. That is the main reason. Russia did not have the tanks. They did not have the military force to navigate Russia as a country. This then led to diminishing supply. All they had to do is wait out. That's all they had to do. So Germany was never even prepared for Russia's tactics.
Then why did so many people die in the Russian front?
Say that again?
Why did so many people die in the Russian front if all they had to do was wait?
There was always going to be Russian war.
No,
don't just give up. You just said you don't.
You know the casualties of the Russians is in like the tens of millions. You know?
Yeah, of course.
Far more than the rest of them nowadays. That's because of awful decisions by Stalin at start.
I do understand that, but you're forgetting the main point that we're discussing right now. Germany managed to take a significant portion of Europe. You said that Hitler was a terrible leader.
A military leader, maybe he had a strong cult personality, that's obviously influenced a lot of people, but when he gave the main decisions to his generals, then yeah, the German army was unstoppable at that point. But as soon as he became too involved with the decision making, always having the final say, never letting them be independent, then the German army completely derailed and couldn't really get any progress done. That's consensus of all the data historians do come to.
History. We can go down to the semantics of it. We can go down to Germany's leadership, or we can go down to Germany's resources, supplies, and preparation.
I just find it daft that you think that the Germans, the average German soldier, had the foresight to thinking this is wrong, and therefore I'm not going to obey my.
Well, that's the history.
That is not the history. They were determined to continue this whole spread of Nazism.
This was the German army that stopped on Christmas Day to play football along with the English people.
No, that's World War One.
No,
I'm talking about World War Two.
But this is the German people, yeah? These are the same people.
They're not the same. They're not the same mindset at all.
They're not the same people at all.
Not mindset. Same people, not the same mindset.
Again?
They were not National Socialists. You got to remember that.
So
they were not National Socialists back then.
You do realise World War II was pretty much still connected to World War I, right? The same ills and the same problems that were plaguing Germany followed them into World War II, and this is why we had World War II.
Yes.
You do realise?
So you're saying that the average German soldier in World War I had this idea of the Aryan right race and all that stuff, that they're going to conquer the world for a German empire that will last 1,000 years.
That existed long before World War I, the theory of the Aryan race, etc. This was like French Revolution times. That's when that started. So I don't really know where you're getting the idea that it didn't exist.
But that wasn't the mindset of the German army back in World War I.
I'm pretty sure
they just wanted. They just were obviously. No, the German intention was to win the First World War. They didn't have this idea of conquering the entire world.
Say again?
The German soldier in World War I, his objective was just to win the First World War by conquering France, not to conquer the world like the ones in World War II.
German soldiers or German military command? Which one? You have to distinguish between the two.
Both. The military command or the average soldier in Germany in the First World War didn't have the same mindset as the ones in World War II.
So what was the distinct change in personality or mentality between those two periods?
Well, first of all, after the Germans lost the war, they had to sign the humiliating contract, and obviously the economy collapsed. The women, they couldn't afford it.
Printing of more money.
Printing of more money. The women had to prostitute themselves. They were completely
economic
humiliated.
ills.
Yes, and also culture, and also they feel like their people have been disgraced.
That's always going to be a symptom. It's never a causing factor. That's always going to be a symptom. When people are feeling a little bit poor and a little bit out of resources, they tend to cling onto the most shallow and most superficial aspects of themselves to make themselves feel a little bit more united and put themselves under a label. That's a symptomatic cause, as opposed to something that would actually cause
I think you should never underestimate sort of how trodden the Germans felt back then.
Yeah, but the thing is,
and obviously when they had this guy called Hitler saying like, "I'll get you out of your economic state,"
has
of course they're going to follow that.
Nationalism will always exist in people who do not necessarily at all are successful in life. That is the fundamental fact of it. People who tend to be a little bit less successful tend to kind of cling onto nationalism a little bit more than your average person.
But
National
socialism
when we're talking about
different.
economic ills and nationalism, they're two different things, right? Economic ills, like I said, that is the main cause. Nationalism tends to be a symptom of these things. Because when a country is in economic ills, do they want to blame themselves? Or do they find it easier to find a scapegoat?
Yeah.
Most of the time
that's why the Nazis blamed the Jews.
This is why we get this is why we get scapegoats and nationalism, etc. You can see it today. But the main question here, when we first started this conversation in particular, we were talking about the ability of the soldier to take responsibility, right? Responsibility for their actions. And your logic was that not all, or majority of soldiers do not have this inkling, and they shouldn't really have this inkling when they are
even the
military.
Even the normal public felt the same. We've done tests where, for example, a subject who doesn't know this test is being, obviously watched over and controlled, and they told like, oh, right, there's going to be a subject that's going to ask a series of questions. If he says the wrong question, you're going to get him a little electroshock, and obviously if he doesn't continue getting the wrong questions, you're going to dial up the
Milgrams.
Exactly, and it just shows that whether it's a soldier, it's a normal civilian, we're always going to we're going to put our morals aside, and always look at the commanding structure telling us what we should do.
This is Philip Zimbardo's study.
Yeah.
This is Philip Zimbardo's
work.
work.
You think it's flawed?
Now, again, Philip Zimbardo will always tell you that there has to be a number of circumstances leading to that decision making.
Yeah,
and
that's
leading to that
just the normal public. It must be even worse in the military, where
it's not the normal conformity.
The soldiers are not taught to be individuals; they're taught to be part of a machine.
And that's why you have the training regime. You have the training regime to batter them down.
Yes.
Now, what I'm saying is that people now know this. Soldiers forfeit the consent, so they have the inkling, they have the foresight, they have the information to know that what they are going to be doing in the future
they can access it but don't have it?
So
they can access it.
Of course they have
it. Doesn't mean.
Of course they have it. What do you think consent forms are for? They don't have consent forms in the military?
Oh yeah, but that's not what I meant. Like,
do they not cover the kind of not even atrocities, but the kind of actions that they would possibly be asked to do in service for their country?
Some may do, some may don't.
I don't think you have selective consent forms. I'm pretty sure they're all universal.
No, not selective. I'm saying like the information that they can access doesn't mean they're going to choose to access that.
The information that is presented in that consent form is directly correlation to their service. If there's no information in there and there is a lack of information in there, they legally don't have to serve. They legally do not have to do any actions that aren't within their contract. Yeah. That is the legal term of it. So for you to say that some people may, some people won't, that doesn't make sense legally.
Well,
legally in the contract.
You think all the circumstances of them joining the army are the same?
Say that again?
You think the circumstances of them joining the army in the first place are the
criteria,
same? The criteria,
the information, the consent, the consensus of them joining the army, right? That's all laid out to them. That's why we have consent forms.
Yes. And
now, I am saying that they have this information beforehand.
Yep.
And they all read this information, or they should, whichever one is thing. But the information is there for them to read.
Yeah.
Now, if that information is there for them to read, how are you telling me that the common mind of the common person is to suppose, or the common person, the common soldier, is to just follow whatever the person in authority is saying?
Because they've been trained to be part of a collective group and not individually.
That's trained. That's very different to the average mindset. Very different.
Yeah, I perfectly accept that moral soldiers who join the army for different reasons to a working class thug who just wants to get a bit of action. You know?
Absolutely.
So yeah, there you go. And yeah, they're all getting the same sort of like consensus that you have to kill when given orders and blah blah blah.
Yes,
you cannot go against those rules, and whether your moral basis on that.
But then this is where the conversation was over there just a minute ago when you jumped in. The conversation was that these people, right, like you say, join a mob mentality, and that's the actual psychological term for it, mob mentality. Join the mob mentality. Mob mentality, patriotic. That's a very creepy comparison. Right? Very creepy parallel.
Is it?
But
washed over by a euphoric wave of nationalism. How's that?
But what he was trying to say in particular is that if these people, right, had this sort of mindset, not even had this sort of mindset, but if these people in particular who joined this mob mentality and were very conformist, etc., blah blah blah, the reason they felt to join the military, or the reason they felt to go to war, or whatever, blah blah blah, is because of the 9/11 attacks, and the reason they went to war is because of weapons of mass destruction, even though that was based on a rumor, and we have a report now to show that that was a complete false.
But how do we? How can we 100% know this?
How can we 100% know?
Well, how do you know if Saddam Hussein did make weapons of mass destruction?
Well, the thing is, we have how many years of occupation in Iraq or Afghanistan, whichever one? How many weapons have we come up with?
You still got rid of them, you know.
Did I go?
You still could have got rid of them.
Yeah, that's cool, but how many weapons have we come up with?
I believe
we've become. Go on.
He definitely had chemical gases.
I do remember back in the early 1990s there was parts of weapons that were intercepted.
Sorry, you'll find my mate.
Go ahead.
Bound for Iraq.
From Birmingham.
Yeah, I heard about that. Yeah. Potentially used against Kurdish insurgent forces. So. Obviously,
mustard gas.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm not saying obviously Iraq in 2003
no,
had
absolutely.
weapons, but obviously there was potential suspicion at the time.
Absolutely. But the only thing is, the only problem that I have with that is that we're basing that, and a lot of the credentials that we're giving to that sort of claim is based on our racism. That is completely it. Because if this was any other European country,
in 2003.
If this was any other European country, we had the Salisbury attack not long ago. Yeah. Do you see us rushing to war?
No.
But we have more credentials there than we did with weapons of mass destruction.
Yes, that's
right?
Yeah.
But it was because of our blatant discrimination towards the Middle East that we just believe that it has to be there, right? Somewhere he could have got rid of them. These are all excuses that don't meet on paper at all. So when we talk about weapons of mass destruction, let's look at the facts. We have been in Afghanistan, is it? Or Iraq? Iraq. We've been in there for how long? Near enough a decade.
2003.
Yeah. We've come up with no weapons of mass destruction. Those are the clear facts that we have. Meaning that from any rational person's point of view, we shouldn't have been there. From what we have now, later on we may find out that there were. But right now we have to go on the facts. There are no weapons. Why are we still there? Why were we there in the first place?
Created a mess and possibly immoral.
Sorry?
Created a mess going in there in the first place. What's the word? Chopping off the head of the snake, creating multiple heads. The old saying about Saddam Hussein, the dictator they could control, and kept a degree of stability within the state.
That's again, I agree with that.
And Libya as well. Gaddafi, they thought they could. They were suddenly friends with him for a little while, and then they decided they weren't anymore.
But just going back to your direct question, why are they still there? One could argue created such a mess, initially created a mess in the country, and moral objective maybe to clean up the mess. For argument's sake.
Arguably, I can agree with that, because you can't just. On one hand, it's a non-winning argument. You go in, You shouldn't have. But like you said, you create a mess. If you leave, people are like, you created a mess and you left.
Yeah.
You stay, people are like, oh, you're still here, and the mess is still here. So 100%, like, it's a non-win argument. Yeah. So for me, I'm concentrating more on the fact of why we went to war in the first place, because it seems that so many countries now, we're in the modern age, but we're so quick to rush to war. That is my biggest concern. And
they're benefiting from all of this. British companies setting up oil and they're protecting oil interests. That's it. I mean, like the Kurds, they almost got their own state out of that. And then
Turkey was against the Iraq war for fear.
Well, yeah.
It could create
they don't want to
Kurdish state.
Kurdistan. But America didn't mind an independent Kurdistan for a while. It is resources.
That's the sad thing, though, isn't it? Like, especially in this new growing age of like renewable technology, renewable energy sources, and all of these places that are trying to get off the grid. We're becoming less and less dependent on oil. We can become less and less dependent on oil.
As a species,
but there's so much investment in it.
Well, it's another reason why going into Iraq, creating a sphere of influence in the Middle East.
That's what I was about.
But George Bush, stabilisation.
They wanted these the whole, if you look at the new plan for the new American century, they want it to be destabilised. Bye-bye. They want it to be people fighting amongst themselves. Bye. They want it to be like that. Yeah, I think so. And Afghanistan's got loads of wealth, and they want it to be destabilised so that they can grow heroin, bring it through. That family.
I was just about to comment on that. Yeah, someone was telling me, I didn't even know about that. The fact that there was a drug element to it as well.
There's a family, an American rich family, who are bringing the stuff and getting Americans addicted to sea cocaine.
Makes you wonder about South America as well, just how much they want to get their little nippy grips in that, because we know that that's a big contributor of drugs within America as well, and it's not necessarily saving the people and stopping them.
Obama started that business again. He started that business against the left wing. The stable left wing in South America. Obama started that again. He started all that up again. It was a plan. I can't remember. Someone told me the name of it the other day. The plan, and he started that plan up again. And then you see the rise of the right in Brazil, and the alt-right in Brazil makes American alt-right. They would be sick if they saw what was going on. The amount of black people get killed in Brazil all the time by police, all the fucking time. Not like America, where black people get killed and black people kick off about it.
It's not as PC. It's not as PC over there. It's not as PC over there at all.
But I think the idea of black is different. The idea of being black in Brazil is slightly different to here. For example, there's a large mixed race population in Brazil, which, if elements of that population were here, they'd be considered black. But that population in itself wouldn't consider themselves black. May describe themselves as, say, mulatto. But obviously your point remains that murder of non-white citizens.
It can be done
whenever you want to look at it. But I do remember 2009 there was a coup in Honduras, which from my reading, Barack Obama briefly supported it. There was a president called Zelaya, I think was his name, left-wing government. America encroached due to the fear of a sort of a sphere of influence of Venezuela. 2009. There was a coup.
Venezuela has been a great shame, isn't it?
It is, but I hear the thing is a lot of people. In particular, I don't know, you probably have read up on what actually happened in Venezuela in particular.
It's hard to tell now. I used to be part of the Venezuela solidarity when they were supporting Chavez. And if you see that documentary, it's called... what's it called? The Revolution Will Not Be Televised. About when they were two Irish documentary makers were in Venezuela when the coup happened, and when Chavez got taken out, they were in the embassy, and when eventually the army changed sides, says no. The army flew him back in, and the Irish guys were still in there. And he went, "All right, how you doing?" Beautiful documentary, and it's so sad what's happened since. I'm not an expert, but I think there's something in the oil price or something.
Basically, what a lot of people seem to put it down to socialism, but that's not to put it down to socialism is probably one of the most simplistic Fox News kind of like elements you can really take to it. But in particular, it was basically how they were booming with oil at the time when Chavez was there. And Chavez really kind of like plowed that down into education, socialism, etc., and really kind of brung the society, so to speak, upwards. But the problem is that he specified and kind of like only kind of like put all kind of resources on oil, refined oil reproduction. And he didn't revive us.
Victim of fluctuations of oil price.
That's the one, wasn't it? I don't understand it.
But there was other scenes as well. There were certain autocratic principles that crept into
I don't like
this
guy. This guy is now. I don't like
even before Maduro, I think. Even before that, there was closure of, say, other TV channels or media networks that were critical of him. There was also, say, an opposition an opposition mayor in another city.
Yes.
That power was taken away from those mayors. So checks and balances of power were gradually eroded.
When Chavez came in, the media were on the other side. The media were right wing. They were on the other side. And he came in against the media, and he was like, "Well, I'm not jailing you. I'm not jailing you. You know, there was that coup. You've got to watch the documentary. It's like brilliant. There's that all the coup going.
So what's it called? The Revolution.
The Revolution will not be televised. Fucking spectacular documentary. Like fucking.
That makes more sense.
Documentary.
I'll have a look at it. Because I did watch a documentary on Venezuela. Just because I'm pro-communist, I'm pro-socialist. So it hurts me. It hurts me when people actually do say like.
And you want to know why?
No, absolutely. Because only by knowing your mistakes, then you can like better the system, or at least know what to look out for in terms of red flags. But a lot of people who are kind of like either pro-conservatives, libertarians, whatever, they're very, very invested in communist states and socialist states looking terrible. And you look at a lot of historical communist states, none of them are communists. Like I know the argument that people try to throw around. Oh, that's not the true communism.
Russia wasn't communist.
It wasn't. It wasn't. But the thing is, to them,
Jesus' disciples were early communists. They were communists. They wanted to share everything. They communalised, and they want to share everything. What's mine is yours. We're all together. That's communism.
That's the thing as well. Like a lot of people seem to view communism and capitalism as two binary. They're not binary. They're not binary. They're spectrums. That's the thing. That's the theory behind it. They're spectrums. And in Russia, what happened was basically after I believe World War I, Stalin wanted to create a revolutionary warfare where he would become a superpower military-wise and would stop or deter any kind of like opposing forces and stop any possible war after that, ironically. And then, that basically led to the retrieving of land which was given out by Lenin in the first place. And that led to a whole load of deaths and people overworking themselves to basically improve the army.
The way I see it is both Russia and China, they wanted to force an industrial revolution by whatever means necessary. They wanted to drag it, kicking and screaming. They didn't care how many people died. We are going to be...
Thatcher in China, or you mean Stalin?
No, Russia and China.
Oh, yeah.
They both wanted an industrial revolution. They wanted to move from that agrarian stuff into like what China you see now. And they don't care how many people's going to die.
What it took European nations 300 or 400 years to achieve. Stalin did it in 15, 20 years.
It was. The thing is though, like you can't justify 80 million deaths, but you're absolutely right. The jump from here to like up here, you can't argue with that. That sounds terrible.
One could argue it won the war. It contributed to the Soviet Union winning the war.
And I think as well we need to take into consideration the context of the time.
Yes.
The context of the time. They just come from World War I. And then they always had that fear of World War II looming around the thing. And bear in mind, World War I was traumatic as it is. A threat of another one. You want to be prepared for that. So this is what led to the paranoia. And
I think they did World War I just because people were revolted. The working people in the UK were revolted. And so I think they were like, I'm not sure they didn't manufacture it. I don't believe in conspiracy theories. I'm not sure they didn't manufacture it because they think, well, we can send our working class people into a meat grinder in the trenches. And in Germany as well. I mean, people don't realise the war was stopped by working people revolting.
I did say this when I was
That's what happened. And I'm not sure how connected they all are. are these royal families and that. You know, how they're thinking. Well, they're all related for them to manufacture a war just to kill working class people.
Weren't they all family as well?
Huh?
All those
they're all family,
families are all
absolutely.
related
And the
to
Russians,
yeah.
all of them. They're all fucking inbred.
The Battenbergs,
All inbred motherfuckers, aren't you?
I'm gonna go around. I'll see you guys in a second.
I'll catch you later. Yes.
Good to see you.
Where's Raj today?
God, I know. I don't know. I didn't even argue with people again.
Yeah, were you here last week?
No, I wasn't.
Content of everything from your humanity.
Man, say it straight. Man, don't listen to BBC. Man, don't listen to ITV. Listen.
What's your argument with me about? What is the argument? What is the argument? Sorry, mate. Excuse me. What is the argument with what I was responding to him? What is your intervention? But listen. This is not. Look, did you hear what I said? What I said.